welcome to the show. My name's Justin. This is Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, everything Tolkien. Why do we still talk about Tolkien even though there's no movies? Because there will be no movies. Now, before Cliff gets here, let's talk about this, okay? People want to know. People think that there will never be any more Silmarillion or Tolkien movies or anything like that. I'm telling you, that's not true. If you look at copyright law, it's death plus 70, which means that the Tolkien estate is in their best fiduciary interest to license the rights to the Silmarillion for feature film or television before they lose the license.
Hey, everybody.
Don't you think?
I don't want to talk about the Silmarillion being licensed again. We talk about it week after week after week after week, and I think it's one of the last things I'd like to talk about. But I understand, Mr. Justin here. Thank you for starting the show off without me. It was a very, very busy day today. Got a lot done, and I'm really glad that I'm here in one piece. Hello, everybody. Hello, interwebs. Hello. Hi. It's good to see you. That was Justin, and he's my co-host and the producer, and I'm your co-host Clifford Broadway. Better late than never, that's for sure. Yes, it's Cliff. Hey, I see a lot of people live in the chat room. Hannah? Oh, yes, Hannah. You have a birthday coming up soon, don't you, my dear friend? That's going to be fun. Big birthday coming up for you. And Maddie of Mordor is there in the chat. Erovandi, Stargate Geek, Emily, our friends all the way from the United Kingdom. And I think we have probably quite a few chatters who are going to be joining us live through this Ustream channel and also through Skype, which we're going to turn on in just a little while. Wow, hey, look at that. Swipe the screen to unlock. All right. How about that? We're back. Less echoey now. Ooh, the echo is gone. Wow, I did not realize that Justin was fixing an audio problem. Good. The sound is back. The echo's gone. People are very pleased. I'm pleased. Hello, Hannah. Yes, you do. All right. Here we are live on the interwebs. So I want to talk about anything else except that. But since people love to talk about that, I thought that we would have a very unique episode talking about some interesting historical points for the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. And there's a big Lord of the Rings Star Trek crossover, and his name is Karl Urban.
You know,
we'll get to the whole Karl Urban conversation in just a minute.
In a completely heterosexual way, Karl Urban is a man's man. Yes. That man.
I predicted this a long time ago. A very long time ago. Did you see that show that he was on USA where he's that brief television show where he...
Yeah, wasn't it on NBC?
No, it was on USA, I think, and he was partnered with a robot or with an android, and they were trying to solve crimes together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw that, but I wanted to see that. The Silmarillion, yes. The Silmarillion was the topic of conversation that you were just talking about. Is the Tolkien estate going to do something that you think is in their...
We'll talk about it more at Comic-Con.
Fiduciary common sense, is that what you said? Something that's in their best interest? To try to license it before it goes public domain? I don't know about that. I think that they're going to probably buckle up while Christopher's still alive, and they're not going to let those rights go.
Yeah.
It's just not. And thank you for this beautiful,
my arm's missing.
Bubbly. Is your arm missing?
Oh dear.
Throw it out there. How far can I go before my hand is disappearing? No, my hand.
Is there anything in Lord of the Rings where it makes things disappear like a mirror?
Almost Human. Well, that was it. Maynard Gamgee. That's right. It was called Almost Human. Yes. No. What is he here? No, he's not here. Karl Urban is not here, but we're going to be talking about Éomer. We'll be talking about his character, his relationship with his uncle Theoden, Lord of Rohan. We'll be talking about his sister Éowyn. Next week, we'll do a very special episode about Éowyn, and today we'll talk about Éomer. But one last thought on the Silmarillion. Are you sure that
you didn't want to talk about this, and now you want to talk about it?
No, I want to make sure that the stuff that you were talking about is correct. Are you sure that your count of legal time is correct? And in governing how long before the Silmarillion becomes public domain?
You know what? Let's talk about that more at San Diego Comic-Con. Our panel will be on Friday. Friday at San Diego Comic-Con. We can't wait.
At 5
have-
p.m. That's Friday at 5 p.m.
I'm trying to get the Happy Hobbits down here, but they won't leave the farm. They're being Happy Hobbits.
Yeah, they're coming. I know they're definitely coming.
No, she texted me yesterday saying, first of all, Hobbits aren't
She asked
supposed-
everybody on Facebook today, can you help us find a place to stay? So she's planning to come.
Oh, they're flippy floppy.
Yes.
Wishy-washy.
Like most American
Like
politicians.
Happy Hobbits.
Like Happy Hobbits, flippy
Total
floppy.
Happy Hobbits. You know, we got a question in the chat room. Eravani asks, are you going to ever live stream from a con again? I sort of miss when you did that.
Ooh, yes.
We're going to try. You know,
I think we should.
here's the thing.
I think
When we were
should.
live streaming, walking around with our little iPad and bringing you the con
We got in
all
trouble.
day,
Did we get in trouble?
that was before live streaming really took off. This
That's
is
true.
before Amazon bought Twitch for $1 billion, and they
Yes.
signed all the streaming rights to Comic-Con HQ, a brand new thing. You should look it up.
They've got money to
So-
throw around.
I know.
I know. That's what I've been hearing.
So last year when we went to all these cons, we got our hands slapped.
Yep, we did. We got in trouble.
Because
We got in
because
trouble.
I guess the businesses caught up to live streaming, and now everybody wants to live stream.
Yes.
We were there first. You guys remember?
Yes, we were. We
So
were definitely
the
there
answer
first.
is I want to live stream. I can't promise or guarantee that we will because we get our hands slapped all the time, and we can't get our hands slapped much more.
Too much.
They're getting very about it.
Yeah, it might get to be problematic if we try to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know, hey, we love doing it.
So
We want to tell everyone out there we would love to live stream everything at Comic-Con if only
we
it were
used
easier.
to, and if you're just joining us on Facebook Live, which is also an amazing thing, Facebook Live. I wish
is.
we could stream to Facebook Live. So I can't guarantee anything until we get to San Diego. We kind of have to feel out the situation. Like, will they get mad if we live stream? So, you know, all I know is we got 5-day passes. We're gonna be there Wednesday through Sunday.
Yep.
Our panel is on Friday. They don't even want us live streaming the panel.
Friday
Our
at 5
own
p.m.
panel.
That's
They
right.
actually told us no live streaming panel, and in fact, if you want to film it and upload it to YouTube, you have to wait a day.
Isn't that Friday, July 29th?
They're very tisk.
You know what's funny about that? With people getting their individual devices in that convention center, with literally hundreds of thousands of people moving through that hallway every day, how are they going to police that? When every individual will probably be
They're
live
trying.
streaming from their phone, that'll be an impossible task to administrate that.
That's what they're trying to do.
I mean,
we got yelled
really.
at last year. Remember?
Yeah, I remember. I
At
remember.
our own panel.
I remember.
At our a lady came up and said, "Are you streaming this?" I said, "Yeah, it's our panel." She's like, "No."
Is that what she said?
Yeah, we got in trouble last year.
Shit.
Valentina on
that's funny.
Facebook says,
That's funny.
you like appearing and disappearing. Nice all blacks shirt. Yes, thank you. I actually got this from Happy Hobbit. Kelly, she actually got a job at Weta. Crazy stuff has happened. You know, Torn is an amazing thing. We were just on Twitter. Some
Yes.
people said that they met their spouse on the OneRing.net.
That has happened quite a few times. I officiated one of their weddings,
People have met their spouses. People
Yes.
have gotten jobs, and then
and I've married them off to each other. Yes, it's
and
true.
our own Happy Hobbit, Kelly, has actually got a job at Weta.
Mm-hmm. She does. Lucky
Moved
girl.
into New Zealand, the
Lucky
whole
girl.
deal. Like, what amazing. No, we're not drinking beer. We're drinking bubbly water.
Bubbly Perrier.
We got and you can also text us 530-64-FRODO.
Does this look like a Heineken bottle?
64-FRODO is really our phone number. You can text us. We got a text right here that says, with that background, I almost expect Ron Burgundy to say, stay classy, Middle Earth.
Oh, that could happen. You know what? That could happen. Conceivably, that is totally within the realm of possibility. It
Yes.
really, really, really is.
Hannah remembers everything that we're talking about. Eravani says, I don't even understand what an issue businesses would have with live streaming. Here's the issue. Let me explain it. Now that we're talking about it. The issue is that people think everything is content. And YouTube is big business. Video networks are big business. If you go to Comic-Con HQ, Google it, Comic-Con HQ, you'll see it costs like $15 or $20 a month, and you can watch all the panels from Comic-Con.
Yes.
It's Comic-Con HQ. It's like television for Nerdist is doing stuff. CISO. Everyone wants to be like Hulu and Netflix.
So they finally caught up with Dragon Con TV.
And so, yeah, they finally caught up with Dragon Con. They've been doing it for 20 years.
Yes, they have. Yes, they finally caught up.
So instead of being, we're all in this together, the conventions like New York Comic Con and San Diego Comic Con, they sold the rights, the video rights to all the panels. So even if we are hosting our own panel with our own guests in front of a big audience, we have to get explicit permission on paper, signatures and everything, if we want to film our own panel.
Do you know what I always say? Better to ask for forgiveness later than to try to ask permission first. That's my usual way of handling that.
That's how we've usually operated, but last year we did that and we got tisk-tisked.
That's one way of saying it.
Yeah, it was pretty harsh.
Yeah, we had some cease and desist moments in our illustrious career as the OneRing.net, and I want all you wonderful people out there to know this is true. We have gotten We have gotten so close to trouble, like with Warner Brothers. We've gotten in trouble with New Line many, many years ago. Do you know how the OneRing.net actually got its notoriety? In the year 1999, when the whole thing started? Tehanu was served a cease and desist letter for her allegedly crawling over a farmer's fence and sneaking across private lands to go and investigate and take pictures of the Lord of the Rings location sets out in this massive field.
Like a good hobbit should.
Like a good hobbit should. But you know what? The fact is, it wasn't her, but we got so much publicity from the studio coming after us. So, I really don't mind. When we ruffle a few feathers at the studio, I never would mind, because it's good publicity for us. It's great. Like the old saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity, as you know. It's a very, very famous saying. So yeah, and now we're here on Facebook with how many hundreds of thousands of people a week watching us on this amazing
Spirited Book
live stream.
I shouldn't even be here. I should be working. But what about the great tales?
There's time. There's time for working later on. Right now, it's time for some of the great tales.
Zarb asks Justin and Cliff, which of Peter Jackson's movies is your favorite? The Two Towers.
The Two Towers Extended Edition.
Yep.
Always.
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 And forever.
Hello, Zarb. We always answer the same because it's always true. But wait a minute. We have 6 movies to choose from, right?
No, we have a lot of Peter Jackson movies.
Oh, which of Peter Jackson's movies is your favorite? I'm sure that Zarb was asking about Middle-earth Saga.
He just said Peter Jackson's movies.
Well,
because there's no other Middle-earth movies except Peter Jackson.
That's
remember?
right. Well, no. There's the Rankin Bass animated version.
Yeah, but those don't count.
They do. They are full films. They are feature films.
Previous
and so
generation.
does the Rankin Bass. I mean, the Ralph Bakshi 1978 Lord of the Rings. That counts as well. Don't make me start on you. Don't make me start on you. Okay. Hello, Spirited Book. Good to have you. And everybody else, our regular audience, is joining us with a huge new Facebook audience. Talk to me about Éomer this week. Next week, I'll be talking to you about Éowyn, and we'll have a very special guest. We'll have a special guest next week who was the girl who almost played Éowyn, and she's celebrating a birthday, and we're going to have a special Éowyn birthday cake. We're going to do that live on the air next week, but let's talk about her brother, her older brother, Éomer, while we're here on this show.
But before we get this...
This is a connecting question.
We have to close out the Comic-Con discussion.
Do we? Okay. All right.
One more thing.
The San Diego Comic-Con being the biggest pop culture event in the world, it deserves a few more minutes of talk time.
Google this.
Google this.
Cosplay train.
Yeah, the cosplay train. I was going to mention that.
The cosplay train.
I was going to mention that.
There is an actual train that's going from Los Angeles, world famous Union Station. What a wonderful place that is. Union Station, all the way to the door-to-door service to San Diego Comic-Con.
Angry Goat Productions, who are launching this, and guess who's the special MC for this year's train ride?
Who is it?
It's William Kircher.
Biffer!
That's right.
Own William Kircher.
Our very own Biffer, who got the
He's been here on so many things.
He got the axe pulled out of his forehead. So Biffer, William Kircher, he is going to be on the cosplay train, which is doing a special ride that takes you from L.A. to San Diego.
You know who else is
from
going to be
here
on
to
it?
the Comic-Con.
Every train car is a different theme. There's the
There's different themes.
Tolkien.
Yeah, there is.
Do you know who's next to the Tolkien?
Is it the video game car?
Burt Ward and Adam West
No
will
shit.
be in the Batman car
Oh,
right next to
dude.
the Tolkien car. So
That's
you can
right.
hang out with Biffer, William Kircher, and then just mosey on over. And there's the Batman car with
That is
Adam
so cool.
West.
There's the fantasy words car, the video gaming car, the science fiction car, which is connected to the 21 and over lounge car.
Yes.
Which is only for the people who want to have a proper pint of 1420, a fresh brewed ale from the East Farthing.
Yes.
Yes. So, oh my gosh, that's going to be pretty cool. So, yeah, that cosplay train, you want to find out details about that? Dial 844-4-COSPLAY. That's 844, number 4, COSPLAY, or just look up Angry Goat Productions.
Just Google cosplay train.
Google
Just
cosplay
on
train.
San Diego.
You'll find it right away.
And you can text us or call us. The
very
phone
exciting.
lines are open the whole show, 530-64-FRODO. That's really our phone number.
For Frodo.
530-64-FRODO. Sherry Todd just joined our Facebook broadcast and says, I love Carl Urban, and I do too in a completely heterosexual way, but boy, oh boy,
Yep.
that man looks at you and you know that he could destroy you in the best way possible. You know, I just watched an amazing film last night, not knowing that we were going to talk about this. Pathfinder is an amazing, very stylized film, kind of like 300.
Yep. Yeah, I
Pathfinder.
remember. I remember
it's all
Pathfinder.
about the Vikings invading Native America.
Yep.
You know?
I do. I remember that.
And the main guy, I was surprised to look under his hair, and when
Yeah.
he pulls back his long bangs, it's Carl Urban.
He plays Ghost.
Carl Urban is the main guy.
He's the main guy. His
Pathfinder.
character's name is Ghost.
How did I miss this?
Pathfinder was something that was missed by everybody. It was a huge, huge box office failure. Cinema Blend gave it a score of 2 out of 10. And the reason why you didn't see it is because it is dwelling. It's a bottom dweller. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a rating of 11% fresh. Only 11% fresh. And everybody hated it.
You know,
Nobody went to go see it.
It was worth watching on like HBO 16 or something like that.
He was the only named cast in that. There was a bunch of other unknown people in there, but the only named cast was actually Carl Urban. But then again, no, I hate to say, there was Russell Means. You know, Russell Means played Pathfinder. That's the name of the American actor, the
Yeah.
Native American actor.
Russell means he's been in
Yeah,
everything.
he's Oglala Lakota. He's a Lakota activist for his Native American people. He's really, really cool. He died 4 years ago, which is very sad. But everybody knows him from The Last of the Mohicans and Pocahontas. He was in all the Disney Pocahontas movies, providing voices, and movies like Natural Born Killers. And he's been featured in a lot of American films. So Pathfinder, fine. It's not to be confused with everybody's favorite role-playing game, Pathfinder. If you're not playing, you know, the new Dungeons & Dragons, which a lot of people are, then you're probably a Pathfinder fan because it has a more succinct battle system. It's an excellent role-playing game. For all you fans out there who love tabletop games,
Yes.
definitely recommend Pathfinder. But the thing about Mr. Carl Urban, do you know how long ago I predicted that all the lovely ladies out there would swoon for him and all the dudes out there would want to emulate him, would want to be just like Carl Urban? And then years and years later, he is undoubtedly an A-list actor who's got TV shows, movies under his belt, some more successful than others. Compare Lord of the Rings to Pathfinder.
Nothing will ever compare to any of the Lord of the Rings actors' Lord of the Rings experiences. Come on. 3 of the greatest films of all time, probably the greatest trilogy
That's true.
of all time. People will
true.
say Star Wars is a great film. Star Wars is a great film. But I would say, as far as trilogies, Lord of the Rings is the greatest trilogy of all time.
I'd agree with that. And that's coming from a Star Wars fan. People, that is coming from a Star Wars fan.
Stargate,
Believe it or not.
everyone's talking about birthdays. July is full of birthdays. You know, we just celebrated Liv Tyler's birthday.
We did, not
On
so
the
long ago.
1st.
Yep.
Yes.
You know what else happened on the 1st of July in Middle-earth?
What happened?
The wedding of King Elisar and Arwen. Yeah, oh yeah, we've got Carl Urban coming up in Pete's Dragon. That's right.
Have you seen the billboards around town?
Yeah, there's billboards everywhere.
They're showing the dragon.
Yeah, the dragon's
everywhere.
tail. Yeah, everywhere.
No,
showing
they're
a lot
showing actually like people riding the dragon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've seen billboards.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
I don't
Yeah.
know if I like that. I was kind of waiting for the mystery. I enjoy the mystery. I
don't know about that. They tried to do a mystery around Smaug with their marketing campaign around
Yes.
that dragon, and that didn't help. The Hobbit movies made less money and less money
It still
every
made $1
successive
billion.
year they came out.
Well, you can blame the less money on the second Desolation of Smaug movie
Yeah, I
because
guess.
they didn't kill the dang dragon.
Nah, that's right.
Come
they
on,
didn't.
you're gonna call a movie The
didn't.
Desolation of Smaug and there's actually no desolation in it? None.
This is fascinating. The whole thing about showing a dragon or not is something that we had a vocal part in. There was a San Diego Comic-Con where the Warner Brothers people came, sit in the audience during our panel for the OneRing.net, and everybody in the room, 800 fans, all raised their hands and said, "Don't reveal Smaug too
No.
early."
Yeah,
Everybody
we
said
didn't
that.
want to see it. We didn't want to see it
And
at all.
everybody, all those little people, those studio people were sitting right there in the front row. What'd they do? They went, do-do-do-do-do-do, and they took lots of notes. Instantly, I saw them all taking notes. And they didn't. They did not. Not until there was a Chinese movie poster for The Desolation of Smaug
Yeah.
did you see Smaug in major advertising.
And then they didn't even
For China.
kill him.
No, and then they didn't even kill him. They did not even kill him.
Aravandi that says the Desolation of Smaug has a warm place in her heart
Yeah.
because it is the first Middle-earth movie that got to see in theaters. Really. Aravandi. Desolation of Smaug was the first Middle-earth movie you saw in theaters? That's crazy. Everyone went to see Lord of the Rings.
Yes, everybody did, except for some of the younglings. There were younglings in this audience who may have been too young at the time.
I kind of freaked out when Smaug came out of the gold. It was so good. Look, Smaug's reveal, Smaug's everything. I gotta hand it to them. They did a pretty good job of balancing, a movie called The Desolation of Smaug and not revealing too much of the dragon beforehand. But they didn't deliver on the desolation. So that movie is a complete failure.
Yeah, we didn't get to see the dragon's desolation of what? Destroying Lake Town, you mean? Yeah, right. No,
we didn't even see that.
No, we just saw them walking through the ruins of Dale. We watched
The flashback was in the first movie.
Balin explains to Bilbo that the Desolation of Smaug refers to all the lands that they're walking through. That's all we get. But anyways, I wouldn't mind that too much.
Mayor Gamgee says Desolation of Smaug is his favorite for two reasons. I love seeing Gandalf's journey to the tombs and see Beorn. More importantly, however, I love DOS because this is the very last road movie of Middle-earth.
Now that's something to say. There's the quality of being in a really good fantasy road movie. Everything stops at the Battle of the Five Armies because
Text
that's
us your opinions
that's
as well.
really cool. I appreciate that. That means that there's only 5 road movies with lots and lots of traveling. In the third movie of the Hobbit trilogy, they're all stationary. They're all there, with the magical exception of Legolas and Tauriel, who magically travel over 250 miles north of Mirkwood to Mount Gundabad, and then magically come back in a matter of a couple of days.
So much wrong with that movie.
In just a couple of days, they go all the way across the map and back.
So much wrong with that.
There's some weird... Hey, what about Varys? Varys, the fastest man in Westeros, who managed to get down to Dorne, and then allegedly, according to the series finale, the season finale, Varys gets over to Meereen to meet with Daenerys Targaryen and Tyrion Lannister, and then get all the way back, as we see him in that last shot. But there's a lot of theories about how Varys...
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're not a Game of Thrones fan?
No way.
Well, guess what? There's a Carl Urban Game of Thrones connection. Do you know it?
No.
Okay. Have you guys seen Dredd? That really cool latter-day adaptation of Judge Dredd that came out. The villain in that movie was none other than Cersei Lannister. That's right, Lena Headey. Lena Headey and Carl Urban are the antagonist and protagonist against each other in the movie Dredd. Seriously, you think you couldn't find more connections to from Game of Thrones world to Middle-earth world, but it's true.
Can I ask you something?
You watch
about
Dredd
Game of
and you're like,
Thrones?
oh wow, look at that. There's Cersei Lannister taking crazy drugs and going in slow motion. And
You know, I've seen.
Carl Urban is so badass in that movie.
I don't watch Game of Thrones.
So
I've
good.
seen a bunch of GIFs,
Gifts,
and
gifts.
of a green fire explosion in the finale of Game of Thrones, and I keep seeing these because I just watched finally the Warcraft movie, which is all about green flame, fire, smoke,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, is Game of Thrones and Warcraft set in the same universe? What's going on with all this green smoke?
Makes you wonder.
Why is there green smoke? I didn't know Game of Thrones was like green smoke friendly, and then I thought this is
Green
so
fire
weird.
friendly?
Yeah, but then I remembered like, oh, the Paths of the Dead. Those guys are all green.
Ah, yes, they are. Well, that stuff in Westeros that is green has nothing to do with anything else in Warcraft. There's no connection.
Okay.
I would just assume that Duncan Jones, the director of Warcraft, figured that that was a pretty good color to go for because it was close to the video game. I'm just assuming.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming. Oh, Spirited Book is like, ugh, don't talk about the Warcraft movie.
I tell you what, though.
Let's see,
Someone in the chat room asked, what is our least favorite Peter Jackson film? I have to say Bad Taste because I don't like scary, gross movies.
Oh, that's your least favorite?
Bad Taste.
I love
is
Bad
just
Taste.
Bad Taste.
I love that
I
stuff.
don't like that gore stuff. That's gross and gory. Like
That's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in any movie.
Bad Taste.
I love Bad Taste. I really do. I thought it was
Why?
fun because
Why?
it's funny. Because it's a zombie splatter movie that has the most outrageous, over-the-top splatter. And it's really outrageous. Why would you like the Evil Dead movies by Sam Raimi?
I didn't
Why would you like the
those either.
Reanimator from the 90s? Why would you like any of these
I
crazy
don't.
splatter movies?
I don't like splatter movies, and I can't believe that they let a splatter
You've
movie
got to be
director
kidding
make
me.
Lord of the Rings. Like, what a risk! I saw Bad Taste. I'm like, that can't be the same Peter Jackson.
Did you see? Oh, right. You're so funny. You are so funny. You are
I thought
so
it was.
funny.
I literally thought it was a different Peter Jackson. Just like everyone's thinking about Chris Evans. You know, Chris Evans, Captain America, and Chris Evans, the former Top Gear host.
Yes. Yeah, they do get
One's
those
a redheaded
confused.
stepchild, and another one is Mr. America.
So funny. Dead
I
Alive.
can't.
Did you see Dead Alive? Peter Jackson's Dead Alive. Raise your hands.
Isn't that Brain Dead?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I believe that.
Dead Alive is Brain Dead.
Yeah, it is Brain Dead. That was the American re-release of the name.
Yeah.
Yes,
remember-
but that was
I
Brain
remember
Dead was
Dead-
Dead Alive.
I remember Dead Alive
So funny.
was always on the shelf at Blockbuster Video.
Yeah.
And you know, they had those VHS, and so you saw all the covers to all the videos, and it was just like it would just look so weird and insane.
Are you gonna tell me that when he takes the lawnmower and has the lawnmower in front of him and he's like blah, 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 chopping up all these zombies and it becomes total chaos of zombie splatter through the whole set? You gonna tell me that's not hilarious?
No, I
It
don't.
is
I
so
don't
funny.
Need that
I love that.
polluting my mind. I don't need that in my memory.
Hannah Took says it's not as bad as Meet the Feebles. Well, yeah, Meet the Feebles is a whole nother beast entirely.
Ooh, tell me about Meet the Feebles. I did not see this one.
Meet the Feebles is Peter Jackson's very twisted satire of the Muppets. And he has a lot of Muppet characters and Muppets that are in the land of sadism, drug use, ultra-violence, and really, really sick humor. So there you go. That's a brief summary of Meet the Feebles. And it's impossible to get because it's never been brought to America.
And Richard Taylor worked on all these.
And he designed all those puppets for them. And
So Peter Jackson and Richard Taylor are two halves of the same brain.
yes, they are.
So
The brain that got splattered in the lawnmower in Dead Alive.
So if at their core, when they don't have any money and they can do whatever they want and they have no restrictions, they wanted to make a parody of all those Muppet things. So
Yes, it was a super sick parody of the Muppets.
Is it appropriate to give them the rights to Thunder? What?
The Thunderbirds?
Thunderbirds.
Yeah, because they have experience in making puppets.
Yeah, but they don't appreciate.
And they
them.
have-
They
they-
wanted to
They have
Destroy all the old puppets.
no. They wanted to take.
They should
their,
have the Troma license, not the Thunderbirds license.
I don't mind the sick and twisted puppet humor that comes from Matt Parker and Trey Stone in Team America: World Police. Do you? Of course you don't mind. A good parody deserves to go as far as it wants to go to make fun of its original source. Why the hell not? I mean, I don't have any of these problems that you have. And I would have thought you, of all people, would appreciate the fun of a good splatter movie. I mean, come on.
The most fun I can go with a splatter movie is Doom, starring
Carl Urban. Right. Speaking of, Carl.
You like that?
Yeah.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
Hilarious. No, I'm expecting it all the time. I was just trying to ask the audience out there. Do you guys know that Carl Urban, Lena Headey shared the screen together in that movie Dread? And then
But before that, he worked with The Rock. In
Carl Urban, yes, he did.
Doom.
Yeah, he did. He sure did. Yeah.
Which was the first movie to have a first-person perspective. They tried to replicate the game.
Yep. That's
And
right.
I thought they did very well in it. And now there's whole movies, I think called Adrenaline or something like that, where the whole movie's in first person. But Carl Urban was in Doom. Carl Urban's consistently got work.
Yep. Both good and bad. Both good and bad.
Quick
It's
question
true.
from the hotline 53064 Frodo: can you see any filming techniques used in Lord of the Rings in PJ's earlier films?
You're so funny.
That's a good
What
question.
What was that question again? Tell me that question one more time.
Can you see any of Peter Jackson's filmmaking techniques in those earlier films?
Yes. Yeah, you can see when you watch The Frighteners, and you watch The Frighteners back to back with
Return of the King.
Brain Dead, back to back with things he was doing in The Fellowship of the Ring, you see quite a few similarities with the way Peter sets up shots, the way he handles
Locations especially.
the way he handles locations, and the way he introduces creatures. The way he introduces creatures and
Yeah.
things into your field of vision.
He introduces a piece of the creature.
Yep. Yep.
And then
yep.
he introduces
Yeah.
the whole creature.
Totally. You'll see Peter Jackson's touch over heavenly creatures as much as you'll see it over The Lovely Bones. Even though they're different movies, but they still talk. They touch upon the subject of a true crime story, and both of them are a bit a bit downbeat, a bit downbeat in tone.
Yeah.
But the effectiveness of Heavenly Creatures and the way that Peter Jackson could visualize fantasy elements in his zombie movies and in Heavenly Creatures convinced Mr. Miramax himself, Mr. Harvey Weinstein, to say, yeah, you can come crash on my couch and come stay here in L.A. and let's get your other fantasy movie off the ground.
The creatures is an obvious thing, but heavenly creatures. What would you say? Wait, is there anything specific you can remember from heavenly creatures? Like, oh, he just repeated that shot in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I do see some shots. There are some compositions, but then again, when the Lord of the Rings hit the marketplace, and it hit so hard and was such a cultural touchstone, a real touchstone, now you see a lot of other fantasy filmmakers copying Peter's shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, while Peter himself was copying shots from
I will say
Ralph Bakshi. You get it? You see the connection?
Yeah, so,
the dots are connected.
So
totally.
to answer your question, the majority of Peter Jackson's filmmaking techniques that are kind of visible in Lord of the Rings are the creatures and the prosthetics and the introductions of those creatures. But we've gone over this before. The majority of Lord of the Rings, especially Fellowship of the Ring, I mean, they shot sequentially for the most part for Lord of the Rings. The Fellowship is almost a shot-for-shot remake of Ralph Bakshi. So there is more Bakshi in the Lord of the Rings films than I feel Peter Jackson's earlier films.
Yeah.
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 And that's different.
Yeah, why not?
That's different from filmmakers like Michael Bay, who, if you watch Michael Bay's earlier work, he did the music videos for Meatloaf. Remember the 90s re-explosion of Meatloaf?
Yep.
I Would Do Anything for Love,
Yep.
Objects in the Rearview Mirror. All of the music videos that Michael Bay did for Meatloaf, you can watch Pearl Harbor Armageddon, Transformers,
Yes.
and it's the same exact shots. I remember there's music Meatloaf music video, Objects in the Rearview Mirror,
Yeah.
and there's a shot of this plane flying overhead and this kid, and the camera just goes, and he replicated that shot in Transformers with Megan Fox, with Ben Affleck in Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
Michael Bay's whole repertoire
Is reusing the same shot.
is
That's funny.
always reused. I don't see that in Peter Jackson's work. There weren't a lot of times in King Kong that I felt like, oh, that shot was used in Lord of the Rings.
I did. I watched King Kong.
Really?
And I especially in King Kong, I thought there's a lot of stuff in here that is very Lord of the Rings-ish. Compositions, some of the action set pieces, the way that they were running from all the dinosaurs and everything on Skull Island. Question in the chat room: have you ever seen the movie Legend? That movie was extra creepy.
Yeah,
And
that was
yes,
Ridley Scott.
That was Ridley Scott, one of his earlier films, with Mia Sara and Tom Cruise, and an outstanding performance by none other than Tim Curry himself as
Oh, that's
Darkness.
a good one. The swooping crane shot during the fantasy sequence in Heavenly Creatures.
Yeah,
the
with the
toy
toy soldiers. Yeah, the
yes.
swooping. Yes, you're right, Steer Pike. There's a bit of that too. Now, I watch The Lovely Bones. I watch The Lovely Bones, and I see some shots in there that are so not like Peter Jackson. It felt like it was such a different movie. But then there was a couple of things, the way that Peter builds suspense, that were familiar as his style of work. But anyways, how about a little bit of a Carl Urban flashback? Do you want to know what my first interview was like, sitting down with Mr. Urban?
No, go ahead.
It was in February of 2001. That's right. I'm telling you guys, it was February.
But this is before the first movie.
February 2001.
Would be before the first movie.
Well, it was after the Fellowship of the Ring, but before
So
the Two Towers.
2002.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be 2002. Fellowship came out December 2001.
No.
Let's
Are
throw
you
it to the
right?
chat room.
Fellowship of the Ring. Wait a minute. Let's see. The film.
2001, 2002, 2003.
2001. Yeah, the movie came out in 2001. So it was before Fellowship came out. All right.
This December,
Forgive my brain.
This December will be the 15th anniversary of Fellowship of the Ring.
This December, yeah. So I was interviewing Carl Urban, having already met him on the set, because I had been down in New Zealand for quite a while they were filming The Lord of the Rings, but I wasn't allowed to publish that until a year later when The Two Towers came out. Yes, that's right. Yes, Steer Pike, number 42. I love that you mentioned Richard Adams' Watership Down. The voice of John Hurt, who is the voice of Aragorn from Bakshi's Lord of the Rings. That's right, he did voice one of the rabbits in Watership Down. This is true. But look, my first interview, sitting right down here with Carl Urban. Here it is. I just found it. We were at the Bel Age Hotel in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And this was the small little movie that Harry Sinclair, you guys know Harry Sinclair plays Isildur in Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay.
And he's the guy who refuses to throw away the ring in the Crack of Doom, even though Hugo Weaving is screaming at him, destroy it! But he doesn't.
Okay.
And he walks away, and Isildur
Yep.
has the ring, and of course he eventually gets mowed down by orc arrows, and his body ends up in the river. Remember? So Harry Sinclair directed a little, small, tiny little indie film called The Price of Milk. And it was released in February, late February 2001. Right, a few years before The Fellowship of the Ring came out. And so I had a sit-down interview. And it's a really fun, cute, little small movie. It's a romantic comedy out in a dairy field in the middle of New Zealand. And it's a fun little peculiar character piece with a really lovely Danielle Cormack, who plays the romantic lead opposite Mr. Carl Urban. And I've got this really cool, hey, look, see, here's my first interview. This is my big interview that I did right here on the OneRing.net, where I interviewed Carl Urban. And
Talk to the man before the first movie had even hit.
yeah, I did.
That's incredible.
For Urban, it was a big year of working with animals. On the set of The Price of Milk, he played farm keeper to 117 cows, but also an agoraphobic dog that lives under a box and walks around in the box like a turtle. Really cute movie. I really enjoyed that.
Why didn't Elrond just chuck Isildur into the fire?
You'd think. I would have just pushed him over too.
But why didn't he?
Because elves have less of a murderous streak than most humans do. I guess you could say.
But he went to destroy.
But he was the new king, and everybody knew he was the new king. And if Elrond walked into the Samath Naur, the Cracks of Doom, with Isildur, and then walked back out by himself, it would look pretty obvious what he was doing.
But they would have destroyed the ring, the great evil of their time.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
He wants to work for CinemaSins. Everything wrong with the Fellowship of the Ring in 14 minutes or less. He wants to work for CinemaSins now.
I'm curious why the necessity for free will supersedes the evil, the triumph of evil.
Well, I don't know that situation in the movie actually happened in the book at all. So what Peter Jackson pictorialized in the film of Elrond, the Lord of Rivendell, begging Isildur to throw away the ring in the Cracks of Doom, I don't know if that actually happened in the book the same way that the movie shows it.
Okay.
So, will that answer your question? Maybe it's easier to say that Peter Jackson invented this dramatic scene that never existed.
For elves, though?
And now it looks like a really cool dramatic scene, and it gives you a sense that Elrond was there thousands of years ago, and it makes the audience relate to Elrond differently. But now you're just asking the most obvious question: why didn't he push Isildur in?
Yeah.
Well, the answer is obvious because Professor Tolkien didn't do it that way, but the filmmaker made up a scene that ends up looking a bit illogical.
Here's the One Ring hotline. Who's calling?
Anyways, you interrupted me when I was talking about Carl Urban.
Hey.
Is it possible to ask a question? If that's how it works? Like, I've recently been watching some of the live feeds prior, and it says, like, you have questions, you can call and ask.
Yeah, go ahead. Ask away.
Alright, so I guess my first question is, thank God that I was alive, and to witness the Lord of the Rings turned into a film.
Yep.
I've both read all the books as well as seen all the movies. I practically almost, you can even say, memorized the script for the movies. So, out of curiosity, if you could imagine this hypothetically, let's say back then Game of Thrones was still playing on HBO, and it was a success as it is today. Could we see, does, for example, Justin and Cliff, or even the OneRing.net, would they see the movie still being a bigger success than if it was ever translated to being into a TV series, kind of based off the success of Game of Thrones? Because I've heard some rumors from other fans also that if Jackson, for example, ever got the rights to the Silmarillion, he would it would be a great idea to, instead of making it a movie, to turn it into a TV show, a series, if you will. And I'm just curious, what do you guys think would be, would the movie still supersede the TV show, or would the TV show gain a lot more attraction?
I think TV and films are two different mediums, and I think the success of Lord of the Rings on film made it possible for Game of Thrones, and I don't think it would have worked in reverse. I think if there had been an epic fantasy series on television first, it wouldn't have been as well received or as successful. The success of any film or TV show, all depends on when it comes out, when it releases, and at the time there was nothing out there. I mean, when the Lord of the Rings came out, there was no epic fantasy. There hadn't been any swords and yeah.
It really is a whole different ball game. Kind of like what Jurassic Park did for us in the 90s. showing the possible, like, because Spielberg was an innovator for the industry for, doing new things and showing how you could use these new prosthetics and whatnot. And Jackson took, what do you call that, green screening and just, like, character development. Oh, my God. It's just godly if I had to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, Cliff, would you say that Lord of the Rings would have been less successful if Game of Thrones had been out back then?
No, I only mean to use Game of Thrones as a reference. So Game of Thrones is a very successful TV show, as it's constantly, pitted against, okay, is it good enough to compete with Lord of the Rings? So if Lord of the Rings back then was instead translated as a TV show, could its success kind of be similar? Could we see it like where the TV show for Lord of the Rings was better than the movies for Lord of the Rings?
Interesting question. I get it. I get it.
Compare the two, but use Game of Thrones as a reference.
I get it.
All right.
Totally.
We see now, thanks to Lord of the Rings, how successful a TV show could be. Now, if we translated that to, let's say, modern, even if it's not the Silmarillion, if, let's say,
I got it.
the TV show to fill in some of the gaps that the movies didn't cover, like
Yeah, it would give us more time to actually do it. Cliff, what were you?
I get your question, and thank you for rephrasing it. I get your question. I think I got it the first time. Justin is correct in addressing the fact that the Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, as successful as it is for HBO, it would not have existed without the amazing success and the historical 11 out of 11 Academy Awards that Peter Jackson and his crew won for the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So one chicken came before the egg, at least we know that for sure. But to compare them, if the Lord of the Rings as a large-scale production had lived and breathed in the television marketplace instead of in the feature film theatrical marketplace, we could probably see an aggressive audience flocking to the television week after week after week, and it might have become just as big a television event as it was in film theaters. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. I mean, when Roots came on the air, that was an American cultural touchstone, and everybody was glued to the TV set night after night after night for this amazing miniseries for Roots. And everybody in the world, not just in America, but everybody in the world was talking about it. It was an all-star cast. They won so many Emmy Awards. And if The Lord of the Rings had been done properly for TV, and if it had been adjusted for the format the way that we digest television today, it probably would have been a smashing success, but it may not have broken the ground for Game of Thrones. I don't know for sure, but I think that either way, when the BBC makes another adaptation of The Chronicles of Narnia, and they do it about every 6 or 7 years, it's true, there's always another bloody adaptation of Narnia coming out, and when the BBC does that, every time they do it, it is also a wild success. No matter how crappy it looks, no matter how bad the effects are, it is a thing that everybody in the country watches. So you can imagine in your own flights of fancy, in your own head, how successful The Lord of the Rings would have been as a TV format. But there is a whole different conversation about how these shows are made, because when Netflix makes season 2 of Daredevil, when HBO makes season 6 of GOT, they're throwing more money at it every time. Their budgets get bigger, their visual effects budgets get bigger and bigger and bigger. So it may have been bad timing about 15 years ago to put The Lord of the Rings on television, because it probably would have looked pretty chintzy. It might have looked pretty chintzy with the lower budgets, but nowadays I don't have any question about how far television as a medium can go. When the right producers and the right crew have the right amount of money, they can make something that's worthy of motion picture splendid things that we're used to having. So I hope that answers, your question on my perspective on that.
Definitely.
Yes.
Perspective for me to see, because it also reminded me, I saw an interview with Christopher Tolkien, and I think even with Simon, and the question was asked, if your grandfather, J.R.R. Tolkien, watched Lord of the Rings, would he be satisfied with it? And he was like, probably not, because one, my grandfather doesn't really like film, and plus he talks about like to him it'd be like a limiting of the imagination, where the TV show could be like an continuing extension of that imagination to go on and forth. So that's what my theory is, and thanks a lot for answering that. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, sure, of course.
Could I ask also one more question if possible?
Sure, real quick, because we have a lot of other callers trying to come in on the show.
Sure. I heard, is there such a, did J.R. Tolkien create a talking beetle named Dumbledore?
No, that's
That's a rumor.
a beautiful and very interesting urban legend. There you go.
All right, then. Thank you very much, you guys. God bless, and I really appreciate the work that OneRing.net does.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Yes, it has been 17 years of a beautiful relationship with our fans, and that's one of the reasons why I love our fan base, because we have the most thoughtful fans
Yes.
who ask the most thoughtful
They're
questions.
so pointed.
They're so on point, they come correct, and they deliver the goods, and they're just beautiful. We have the best looking fans. I just got to say that.
We got
okay?
another question.
Just got to
Zarb
say
in the
that.
chat room says, do you know if it's true that they didn't actually leak pictures of the Balrog because it wasn't finished until a couple days before?
No, the Balrog was one of the first visual effects that they finished early.
Yep.
It was a sequence that they wanted to show.
They showed it at
the
Cannes.
at the Cannes Film
Film
Festival.
Festival.
So they worked on that first. The Balrog was so
And-
important to be shown first because they wanted to give people at Cannes the energy of what was happening in the Moria sequence, and that is what many film critics actually came at Peter Jackson and said he climaxed the film early. And then there's another 30 minutes or 35 minutes afterwards that feels like an also ran
No.
at the end of the Fellowship
Yeah.
of the Ring. Because this whole thing with the Fellowship and the terrible loss of Gandalf
Yeah.
and all that stuff felt like that should be the big ending of the film, but then the movie keeps going on for another 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Or a little bit longer, perhaps. But anyways, I don't,
But
I don't mind.
when we did have visual effects supervisor Jim Rigel here, he did say that they had a lot of troubles finishing the full battle
Yes?
of the Balrog, because I don't think they showed the full battle of the Balrog at Cannes. They just showed them getting to the Bridge of Khazad-dûm and then the first kind of roar. But if you remember here on the show, he explained that the fire was so realistic. The fire physics in the computer simulation were so realistic that as soon as they opened the door to escape the mountain, the wind blew out the Balrog, and they said he would keep blowing himself out every time he swung his whip and his sword. And so what they ended up doing is they ended up filming a little sterno can. You know those little sterno cans that keep warm dishes warm.
Yes.
They filmed that flame from a sterno can for an hour, and then they just hit copy paste. And so the fire that you actually see on the Balrog is just a copy and pasted sterno can flame.
Yes.
So
yes.
we've learned
So-
a lot of wonderful little things.
Let me get back to your question about why didn't Elrond push Isildur into the cracks of doom.
Tiffany Broadway says hello though.
Hello, my sister. Where's my sister? My sister Tiffany Broadway. She's on the chat.
She's so wonderful.
She is super awesome. Hello, yeah, that's my sister on the live Facebook chat. Okay.
Why didn't Elrond just push the stupid human
Because-
into the fire pits of Mordor?
Okay, you need to consider this. Okay.
Just be over and done with it. The first age becomes the third age.
It never happened in the book. They never went to the cracks of doom in the book. Elrond and Isildur do not go wandering over to the Samath Naur after the misery and the near-death experience of the last alliance of elves and men. Peter Jackson created an interesting little scene that has therefore caused you a moral problem. But it didn't happen in the books. So does that help you? It's Peter Jackson's imagination. There, that's why. And because we needed to have a movie.
Yes.
We needed to have a movie.
Back
That's
on
why.
track. Look, Jenny just texted us and says, I miss Almost Human. Carl Urban is wonderful. How old is Éomer in the books?
I do have this question right here, but I got to do a little bit of math for you. How old is Éomer in the books?
Because in the movies...
I'm really glad we came back to Éomer because that's what I've been
he's in
trying to
his
talk
mid-thirties.
about for
He's
the
in
hour.
his mid-30s, right?
No, he's a bit older.
Well, in
okay?
the movies, he looks like he's in his mid-30s.
He does, but, you know,
He's-
in the
he's-
movies, Frodo is in his mid-30s.
And he's supposed to be 50.
And he looks like he's 19.
And he's supposed to be 50.
And he's supposed to look like he's in his 30s. When Bilbo's birthday happens and Bilbo leaves the Shire and surprises everybody by putting on the ring, that is when Frodo was actually 33.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he still looks like he's 19. So Éomer was born in Third Age 2991. When Éomer was 11 years old, his father was killed. His mother was King Theoden's sister.
By Gollum.
Literally, King Theoden's sister. Her name is Theodwine. And she gave birth to Éomer, and she died of grief shortly after her husband died. And it was really a sad thing because he was only 11 and his dad was killed and he was an orphan. So his uncle decided to take him under his wing.
Yes.
Okay? Now let me ask you this, everybody.
So he's almost a prince.
I will ask you this and this same question to everyone in the audience. You said the magic word. He's almost a prince. Do you guys know?
He's almost human.
Yes. From that TV show, yes. Now, hey, how many of you folks out there were confused when you first saw the movie, The Two Towers, and you thought that Éowyn and Éomer were the actual son and daughter of Bernard Hill's character, Theoden? How many of you guys... we didn't get to see the extended edition of The Two Towers until 11 months later, where you see the extra scenes of... do you think Éomer went through an emo phase? Yeah? That's possible. Emo-mer. Yes. All right. In the extended edition, they find Theodred's body early in the film. Excuse me. I got a little tickle right here. Sorry. Do you think that it helped people when the extended version came out? Because we have this whole funeral scene of Theoden burying his son.
That was in the theatrical.
That was in the theatrical. The only word we have to understand the relationship between King Theoden, Éomer, Éowyn, and the deceased Theodred, the only word we have in the theatrical version is Theodred is off-screen. He's dead this whole time in the theatrical movie. And after Theoden King is healed and Saruman is driven out of him by the power of Gandalf healing him, the first thing that he says is, "Where's my son?" And then we go straight to the burial.
I never thought...
He says, "Where is my son?"
I had never read the Lord of the Rings books. I was coming in cold. I never thought Éomer was Theoden's
nephew.
kin.
Kin? You didn't think they were nephew or son?
Nope. He was a leader of the Royal Harem. He was a
He
loyal
thought he was just a
subject.
general. Right, okay. Things get more confused.
He did exactly what he was told. He was like, go muster the Royal Harem. Go do this. Go do that. Show up the third day. Like, the dude was a good... He wasn't even a good general. He was just a good mid-level commander.
No, he was the third marshal of the Riddermark.
Yeah.
He was one of their leading
Yeah,
marshals,
marshal.
and he was next in line to become king since Theoden's
I never
son
got
was
that.
dead.
I never got that.
Okay, let me tell you this, guys. Aragorn has conversation with Éowyn later in the film and says, "You are the daughter of kings,"
Right.
which is a direct quote from the book. That confuses matters even further. Every conversation I have with a newbie or someone who's not that familiar with all the Lord of the Rings stuff, they always assume that Theodred, Éomer, and Éowyn were all brothers and sisters, and they were all direct descendants of Theoden.
I
Always.
I don't
Always.
know anybody that thought that.
Everybody I know thinks that Éowyn, and the way she has this
I don't think
conversation, hey, look in Return of the King when there's the marshalling of the Rohirrim in Dunharrow. And remember that pep talk that Theoden gives to Éowyn, and he says, "No more tears. You need to be alive, and you need to live for the future of our people." And everybody thinks that that is a father talking to a daughter, even though it is an uncle talking to a niece.
I never got the daughter vibe. And I
You
never
never
got
got
the son vibe.
You never got the niece and nephew vibe either. It was still not clear to you.
No.
And you went to go back to the theater a few times.
Yeah.
How long before you figured out the family relationships between these people?
It didn't matter. I was all in on their performance.
Okay. See, it doesn't matter.
Who they are is less important than what they do.
I think it's important to know who they are because, especially when you're watching a show like Game of Thrones, who people are next in line to the throne is one of the most important pieces of the narrative. It's like, who's next in line for the throne? And genealogy is everything, okay? Theoden mentions he failed to act as a father for Éowyn because his focus was elsewhere. Thank you, Galadius. I appreciate that. Let me read a little bit to you guys from the Lord of the Rings Wikipedia page. Éomer was the third Marshal of the Riddermark, and he was a strong leader of men. He was honored highly, prized extensively by the king, and was good friends with Theodred, the true direct son of Theoden King, and he loved him like a brother. So you kind of get this Theon Greyjoy. Éomer enters the picture not as the direct son of the Lord, the king, but he's, adopted, kind of like the adopted son, even though he was the nephew. And Éomer, look at this right here. Éomer, after Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas are reunited with Gandalf, okay, the four of them hasten to Edoras, where Gandalf broke Saruman's influence over Theoden King and restored him to health and vitality. Theoden freed Éomer, who offered his sword to Theoden in token of his loyalty. And that's because Éomer was being pushed around a lot by, that jerk, that guy Grima Wormtongue. And under the poisonous advice of Grima, the nephew Éomer was actually imprisoned by the king. And so all these things get fixed. And you wanted to ask the question, how old? Well, we know that he was 6'6". Éomer was very, very, very tall. He was like an NBA star. He was 6'6". And looking at this, the year that he ascended the throne was in Third Age 3019. So if I just do a little bit of math right here and pull up my calculator, and let's do this.
I'm doing my own research here.
Minus
I just
2991.
realized that Karl Urban was in the Bourne Supremacy before Return of the King came out.
That's right, he was. He was 28 to 29 years old after the War of the Ring and after Aragorn was crowned as King Elisar. So, even younger than 30 years old, Éomer became the new king of the Riddermark. But he was from the direct descendants of Eorl the Young, and all the kings of Rohan are descended from that genealogy, and he shares that bloodline. I want you guys to know that for sure.
Some, what I call Tolkien fundamentalists.
Is that what we are?
Criticize Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit for not being more explicit with the family lineage because Tolkien was obsessed with lineage and family trees, and he spent a lot of ink talking about lineage and
yes,
the movies. I mean, I don't believe it's ever mentioned in The Hobbit that Fili and Kili are Thorin's nephews.
Direct nephews.
Right.
Yes.
And I don't think that as you were saying, it's not explicitly clear that Éomer is Theoden's nephew. So, as just a casual fan, I don't mind. I think the movies work. I think the story works. I don't think it's a valid criticism of these movies to say, oh, they should have made it more explicit. I think it's a non-issue, and it's not worth talking about. What I was disappointed on was where was I wanted more Karl Urban in Return of the King.
Yeah, was...
Can you remember anything that Éomer does in Return of the King?
It's all in the extended edition. You get all the Karl Urban stuff in Return of the King is cut out of the theatrical version.
Really?
When you get extended Return of the King, which everybody knows is 42 minutes longer, you get more Éomer everywhere. There's more of him in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
Yeah.
There's Éomer in the houses of healing.
Yeah.
There's Éomer at the very beginning of the film when they go to bounce words back and forth with Christopher Lee.
Yeah, Maddie actually says, I remember that from the theatrical version of Two Towers. Can you not see your uncle is
wearied by your malcontent, your warmongering? Yeah.
Totally like that. Yeah. So,
yep.
I wanted more Carl Urban. He was the hero of the day in Two Towers, and
Yep.
then in the third movie, he's relegated back to being a
gotta-
third marshal.
The funny thing,
Not even a first marshal, a third marshal.
Eomer, you get a lot more mileage out of him and his character in the extended edition of Return of the King, as we all know. Yes, you even get more Éowyn. You get critical scenes with Éowyn and Faramir beginning their relationship with each other in the Houses of Healing, all added back into
Doesn't
Return of the King.
Éowyn take over the throne?
Nope. No, her father, her uncle, excuse me. Yeah, I almost made this mistake. Her uncle, Theoden, instructs her to, because he assumes that Éomer will die and that he will die. And so he's like, you, young lady, you have to go back and handle the Riddermark, handle the people of Rohan. And, you know, she ends up dressing in drag, in man drag, as Durnhelm, and comes in to the big fight at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. At the age of 92, since someone was asking how old was Éomer in the books, he dies in the year 4th age, 63, and he was 92 years old at the time that he dies.
So he lives a full life.
A very, very full life, yes. And,
You know,
yes,
it was
indeed.
just like 2003, 2004 was really Carl Urban, like really establishing himself. I mean, here he is, the hero. One of the reasons that we remember Carl Urban the most out of Lord of the Rings, and it's very weird, but it's true. He was in all of the TV commercials and trailers. What business does a man, an elf, and a dwarf have in the mark? Speak quickly. That was in every single trailer.
it was.
It was in every single commercial.
It was.
And these were huge, huge, huge media buys. I mean,
Yes.
everyone was seeing this commercial
Yes.
all the time. You probably saw the commercial more than all the times you've watched Lord of the Rings combined. I mean, that commercial was everywhere.
Because of the dialogue, it includes the word elf, man, and a dwarf. And that helps reset the stage and puts us in a fantasy story.
So
In that
Carl
realm.
Urban was basically the star of the trailer.
He was
Which,
definitely.
which just psychologically just ingrains on your brain.
Yeah.
You know, that's why everyone remembers that trailer where Vigo opens the door all slowly and sexy, out of breath from the rain.
Yeah.
and
That's funny.
and Gandalf has the line, "I come back to you now at the turn of the tide." These are all in the trailer. And people say it's my favorite part of the movie. Actually, it was your favorite part of the trailer before you even got to the movie. The trailer was so good, so much, so early
Yes.
that by the time you got in the movie theater, you were cheering as soon as you started saying it.
So it's true. It's very true.
So Carl Urban's star began in the Two Towers trailer, which was attached during a second run
Of the Fellowship of the Ring.
of
This
the
is
Fellowship
true.
of the Ring. People don't remember this,
Yes.
but
it's true.
what was it, 3 or 6 months after Lord of the Rings had come out in December,
Yeah.
Fellowship of the Ring, and then like 3 months later, there was this huge campaign, go back to the theater, see Fellowship again, and get a preview of the Two Towers at the end of the credits.
I remember that.
Marvel gives that to you for free now.
Yes, they do.
On every movie.
Yes.
But the
totally.
Two Towers, or the Fellowship of the Ring, they made you go back and watch it again, which nobody minded. And there was the trailer. What business does a man, an elf, and a dwarf have in the Riddermark?
It's true. Well, in the book, Éomer has a larger part to play because Aragorn asks him for his strategy and wisdom
Yep.
during the last debate, which is a big chapter where the powers of the West and the last people standing are trying to figure out how to buy more time for Frodo and how to help guarantee the success of the Fellowship's original quest. And they know it's a suicide mission, but Éomer is there with Aragorn to help them talk and figure things out. And it happens in Book 5, Chapter 9, in the last debate. A lot of things happen in that chapter. It's a pretty cool chapter. That's the part where Aragorn refuses to actually go inside the city of Minas Tirith because he's not the king yet, and he believes he should not stand on ceremony and walk in like I'm the king now, because nothing had really been settled yet as far as Frodo's journey was concerned. But he does enter the city briefly to help Éowyn with her wounds after her terrifying encounter with the Witch King of Angmar. Right?
Right.
Yeah, so Aragorn does enter the city, but then he goes back out again, and he sets up a temporary encampment outside on the Pelennor fields. And Éomer takes part in the council with Prince Imrahil and Gandalf and Aragorn, and they discuss what to do with Sauron's forces still over there in Mordor, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to know that although we don't see that in the film, but Aragorn trusts Éomer. They're buddies.
Yeah.
They're like war buddies.
Yeah.
They know how to deal. They're like GIs who are in the trenches together in war. And Aragorn decides he's not going to make a move without talking to Éomer first. And that is so cool. And Éomer, in the book, reaches back to a time and knows that Aragorn was a friend to Theoden way before Saruman's influence corrupted Theoden King. So they have a bond, a kinship.
They totally have a bond.
They have
fans
quite a
have a
bond.
bond.
Yes.
Janet Foster in the Facebook just said she's making a special trip to DragonCon just to ask Carl Urban to sign something.
Oh,
this
that's
year.
fantastic. Yeah, that's cool. That's very,
Carl
very cool.
Urban, DragonCon, Atlanta. They sure you know who else will be there. Hal Deer himself, Craig Parker, will be there. Craig Parker and Carl Urban. We just saw Carl Urban at Denver Comic Con as well, and you'll see him in Pete's Dragon in a couple weeks.
Éomer asks a very important question during the last debate.
Yep.
Éomer asks why Sauron keeps attacking if he thinks that the good side, the good guys, already have the ring. And Sauron has sort of been convinced because of the way Aragorn uses the Palantir and shows his reforged sword of Anduril.
Yeah.
And Aragorn reveals himself in his full power as, one of the line of Númenórean kings who's come back to claim the kingship. And Sauron is shaking in his boots at that time and is already assuming that Aragorn has his one ring.
He's wielding.
And Éomer asks, why does Sauron keep attacking if he thinks that we already have the ring? And Gandalf reasserts that Sauron is not totally positive that they have it, and he is afraid to wait. He doesn't want to wait to give them the chance that they are going to get it. So there's a lot of mind games going on between Minas Tirith and Barad-dûr, the Dark Tower. And Éomer is very much present and part of the great councils of war. So we don't get to see Éomer being part of the councils of war, not as much. He's just standing in the room with, Viggo Mortensen and Ian McKellen. He's just standing in the room, but, he's part of that debate, the great last debate, before making the final decision.
Is that where Gimli says, small chance of success?
Yep. And in the movie, it's incorrect that it happens in the throne room, and Gimli is making himself comfortable sitting on Denethor's seat, sitting on the steward of Gondor's seat.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen because Aragorn would not go inside Minas Tirith, except for a brief sojourn into the Houses of Healing, and then Aragorn kept himself outside the city walls. From the books, now we know some of the things that are different between the book and the movie. You have to ask these obvious questions. Why didn't Elrond push Isildur into the crack of doom? Well, because Tolkien never wrote it that way. So, anyway.
I'm just
Skype, yeah.
really glad that
Someone wants me to
Carl
turn on Skype.
Urban is from Wellington, New Zealand.
Yes, me too. He's such a local guy.
I mean,
he's such a local guy.
I mean, the
Yes.
quality of talent, the quality of acting talent
Mm-hmm.
featured in Lord of the Rings, and most of it being New Zealand actors.
Yes.
I mean, it's fantastic. The thing about Carl Urban's Éomer and Carl Urban himself, I couldn't quite. You can't quite pinpoint his accent because New Zealand, at the turn of the century, New Zealand was an unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, there's whole communities where they show off world maps where it's missing New Zealand. Like it's a thing.
That's funny. Emily, Stargate Geek. Hello, how are you, dear?
Fine, thank you.
Good to see you. Oh, hold on a second. I'm going to bring the video back. How you doing there, kiddo?
You know, I loved Carl Urban in The Born Supremacy when he played the Russian guy. He was like the bad guy in The Born Supremacy. That was probably my favorite role of Carl Urban.
Really? Actually, one of my favorite Carl Urban roles, to tell you the truth, guys, I'm a major Star Trek fan, a big fan. I'm a real dyed-in-the-wool Star Trek fan. And this year, this is 2016, people. Believe it or not, it is the 50th anniversary of Gene Roddenberry's original creation of Star Trek, the original. So, 50 years, and now I get to enjoy Carl Urban in the biggest Middle-earth movies because he's so awesome as Éomer. And now he's playing another one of my very favorite side characters, Dr. Bones McCoy. That's right, the chief medical officer of the great Starship Enterprise. So, Emily, what do you think about Carl Urban's career in the fantasy and science fiction industry? He's made quite a name for himself, hasn't he?
That's complicated because realistically, I don't think I've seen any of his stuff other than...
Really?
Unfortunately.
So since 2009, you haven't seen any of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek reboots?
No,
You didn't even
I've not
see
really been...
Benedict Cumberbatch is in Star Trek, Into Darkness. You didn't even see that?
I know about it, but I've never been a Star Trek fan, and an awful lot of my Stargate friends aren't Star Trek fans as well.
Well, I think there's enough room for everybody to love their fandom. But I thought that Carl Urban and Benedict Cumberbatch being in the same franchise movie would lure some of the Lord of the Rings fans over to watch Into Darkness, at least.
I might have to watch. I mean, I've seen the odd episode of Star Trek, but I never really got into Star Trek.
Well, it's mighty good. I just got to say that. It's mighty good.
The ones I've seen the most of, probably the ones with, who is it who plays Professor X? I'm not gonna
Oh, that would be Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, I think I've seen more of the ones with Patrick Stewart in.
Yeah, but now it's
Some of the ones with Patrick Stewart
it's
in. But...
James McAvoy, who now plays the younger version of Charles Xavier. Yes. Hi, Ellen. Ellen's in the chat, and so is
Hello.
There's Pete Northrunner. Hello,
James
Pete.
McAvoy was awesome in Penelope.
And Cliff's
Yes.
sister's in the chat room.
And my sister's in the chat room on Facebook, so I've got the whole family here. Everybody's here.
Also with Peter Jackson, the only other thing I've seen of his out of Middle Earth was, him co-directing Tintin. So.
Yeah, that was fun. The Adventures of Tintin was fun.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Otherwise, no, I've not seen any of his old other stuff other than Tintin.
well, I recommend you go and see Heavenly Creatures now. Don't.
I've not really been into horror.
It's not a horror film.
It's not a horror film.
Heavenly Creatures is not a horror film.
Not at all.
It is not a horror film. Not at all. Heavenly Creatures is it's a true crime story. And it's one of New Zealand's most internationally notorious true crime stories. It is not a horror film. It's a drama. It's a drama, and it is the movie that made Kate Winslet an international star.
Well, I watch it. Oh, I might go and watch it then. I mean, I watched a fair bit of crime drama from NCIS and
Yeah.
and CSI.
Yeah, and Jed Brophy, you'll be like, oh, look, there's Jed Brophy. And you'll be like, oh, look at all these great New Zealand people. You'll recognize a lot of
I
people.
did watch.
When you watch Heavenly Creatures, you'll be like, oh, I know these people. Because you've seen them in all these other Peter Jackson films.
I watched The Missing with which had a couple of the dwarves in it, I think, or something like that.
Nice.
But no,
Oh, yeah, that's right. Carl Urban is going to be in Thor 3.
Ragnarok.
That's right.
With Our Lady Galadriel.
With Our Lady Galadriel. So there's another Lord of the Rings crossover.
Oh, it's gonna be so good.
yeah, and then there'll be the
Yeah.
crossover for next year with Beauty and the Beast with so many of our.
Yes.
He's
Yep.
not in that. Carl Urban is not in Beauty and the Beast.
No, but Ian McKellen is, and so also is our boy Luke Evans.
Yeah, but not Carl Urban. Today's show is about Carl Urban.
Today's show's about Éomer. But, all right, tell me, Miss Emily, Out of all the characters in Rohan, who's your favorite? Do you like Eomer, Eowyn, or Theoden? Who's your favorite Rohan character?
I like the horses.
Ooh. That's difficult because I like different aspects of different characters.
I love Eowyn. Eowyn is just one of the best
If I was
characters
only
ever.
allowed to meet one of them at Comic Con and I couldn't meet any of the others, I probably want Theoden's signature.
Ha ha ha. I hear you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
calling. We're gonna wrap up the show now.
Yes, and
Yeah.
we've got a couple more questions to answer, and we've got a couple more things to do
That
before
is
we
a
wrap
good
up the
question.
show.
Prince Imrahil.
Yeah, we're going
I
to talk about
don't-
Prince Imrahil.
I've never read the book, so
I might
I
not be
can't
here
answer
next
it.
week because I've got to work.
He's
I've got to go to work
Faramir's
in the
uncle. So he-
morning early. But
Okay.
He would be the brother of Theoden.
No, he's
according
not.
to
I'll
the
tell
chat
you who
room.
Prince Imrahil is. Don't listen to him. He doesn't know. Okay, it's lovely to have you. Say goodnight, Gracie.
night.
Good night. You're supposed to say goodnight,
No.
Gracie. That's the joke.
Benedict Cumberbatch was the perfect Smaug.
Adios.
He never
Adios.
he
Bye,
never
Emily.
really
Lovely to
talks
have you.
as Sauron.
Bye.
Bye.
But I have to believe that when we get, not if, but when we get the special edition, extended edition, Lord of the Rings,
Which he's counting on more
with
than I am.
extra scenes, more footage, enhanced CG, the whole deal, I have to believe that Benedict Cumberbatch will be recording all of Sauron's lines
You'd think.
in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
You would think. Okay,
Maybe even the mouth of Sauron.
it's possible.
Played by
Played by
Bruce
Spence.
Spence.
Bruce Spence from the first two. Was he in the third?
No.
No, he was.
He was in the first two Mad Max.
He was in the third. He was
was.
in Beyond Thunderdome. He was in the
Oh,
first
that's
three.
right, yeah. He was a helicopter guy.
He's the
He-
pilot.
He's
in-
the helicopter guy from Mad Max.
Yep.
But he was in Star Wars. In the third Star Wars film.
Yes.
He was the one with the stripes in on Utapau, I think it was.
Mhm.
Bruce Spence. He was. Oh, you know what my favorite role of Bruce Spence was? The Matrix. He ran Purgatory.
Oh, yeah.
In the Matrix.
Yeah.
Remember when Neo
Yeah.
gets stuck in that white place and he meets
Yeah.
the Indian
Yeah.
couple?
Yeah, I remember that.
And
Yeah.
that is one of the most powerful scenes in the whole Matrix trilogy. But Bruce Spence is the train guy.
He's the train guy. That's right. He is. To answer your question, who is Prince Imrahil? Not related to Rohan. Not related to anybody from the line of Eorl.
He's Faramir's
Just not.
brother.
No, he's not related to Faramir. He's not related to the line of All right, look. Prince Imrahil was the prince of Dol Amroth. Okay, he was the 22nd prince of Dol Amroth, which is a title used by a noble house of Gondor, and they're the ancestors of Gondorians who rule over the land of Belfalas. Since the downfall of Numenor, had been given the title of prince by Elendil, and their stronghold was not known as Dol Amroth until the drowning of the original Amroth. So, the princes of Dol Amroth are all listed right here, and they're like a noble house of Gondorian. They're to the further west along Belfalas, south of the White Mountains, which are in Elvish, the Ired Nimreus. And no relation to Rohan. Just had to say that for the record. Hey, Pipsquay, our wonderful lady Pipsquay. I love you dearly. One of my favorite audience members from the original days of theonering.net. Great to have you watching the show with us tonight. So, draconic author. No, there is no king of Dol Amroth. The title of prince was just an honorary and a noble title. You could just say Lord Eddard Stark is the Lord of Winterfell, but he's not the Lord of the Seven Andals, and he's not the Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. You know, Ned Stark was just Lord of Winterfell, right? And so that's a separate area, a region, but not a royal line to be compared with the kings of Gondor itself, if that makes any sense. Does that make some sense? So,
None of it makes sense. Thank you for watching Torn Tuesday. We do this every week. We talk about
do.
all things Lord of the Rings and Hobbit and Tolkien. There's so much to talk about. We've got our Comic-Con panel coming up in a couple weeks on Friday at San Diego Comic-Con. Hope to see you there. Maybe we should get a fan meetup or at least
I would love that.
A photo op with all the
I would love
good
that.
cosplay. Our friend who runs the One Ring Net on Instagram at the One Ring Net, our friend Rose Ivy Wallace, she's been running that Instagram for a while now, and she's going to be in the Her Universe fashion show. So we're excited about that. And of course,
That's gonna be cool.
Our OneRing.net staffer, Button Lady, always makes an appearance. Everyone remembers Button Lady. So it's going to be an awesome month. Check it out on our Instagram. Month of Cosplay. Every day, a new Tolkien cosplayer. And we do this every week, Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, here on Ustream and Facebook and YouTube. And I am Justin.
And I'm Clifford, and it's really great to have you guys with us. So much to do before we get down to San Diego Comic-Con. So much to do. And thank you, Galadius Focoena, Mayor Gamgee, Draconic Author, and Stargate Geek, and Northrunner, and there's even Ellen Design and Hannah. Hannah, you got a birthday coming up, and she's sending us messages because Hannah wants to do a fun birthday thing with us. So we'll invent something fun to do.
Thank you, Gladius. Galadius.
Galadius. What a great name. It's really good to see so many familiar faces and brand new folks from the Facebook chat room. Man, we get some huge numbers off of this live Facebook chat. It's an amazing audience. Next Tuesday, now that we're done with the Eomer episode, next Tuesday, Eowyn, a special celebration for Eowyn, the Lady of Rohan. Coming next week, 5 p.m. Pacific time on Torn Tuesday. Have a good night, everybody. Wow, what a great set.